The goal of my painting is to express my experience in the natural environment. The more direct my experience can be, and the more direct my interpretation of that can be, the more it feels like it's coming from a place inside myself rather than something outside of myself. And I love living here in Silo, mainly because, not just because of the community, but because we're surrounded on three sides in this valley by national forest. And I can very easily just get out into a wild area and sketch. And what I run into is an incredible species diversity here. It's some of the one of the most diverse areas for natural species in the country. What I do is I go out, find an environment that I want to sketch, and then go and collect details from that environment so that my landscape and the details, when I make notes, are all of a coherent piece. I'll come back, and this is just very roughed in. I'll come back and work on the sketch some more. But before I do, I like to record the colors that I see. And I have this method of recording colors where I have a color chart that I use. And I will label the big shapes in order of what's the lightest, what's the next lightest, and go on down a value scale. It makes me pay attention to what I'm seeing in the real tangible world rather than paying attention to a world that's once removed. Finish my landscape. Now we'll take a look and see what's in the landscape that I just drew. And pick the flower. Botany's a tool to get me to really look. So when I try to identify something, I look up in the field guide and it says, look at this, look at this, look at this, and to distinguish between things. Or maybe it has two different kinds of flowers. I'll look it up. Now I know what it is. The way I work with watercolor is just go real thin layer one on top of another. And I think of watercolor, the way I use watercolor is not how people traditionally use watercolor. It's more just a way of adding color to my drawings. So I think more as colored drawings than actual watercolor that most people use all kinds of fancy techniques. I just do real thin layers built one on top of another. These are some of my earlier ones, but I've had them be more finished. They've really become a bread and butter item because they're very appealing and they sell well, and I can sell them for not a very high price, and I enjoy doing them. But lately I've been making them more like finished paintings. To me, it's been more interesting to try to compose in little different ways rather than just having everything spotted around there. I keep a journal when I'm out on my travels, or even every day I keep a journal. So then I bring my notebook pages and my rough sketches from my sketchbooks together, and I play around with different ideas, and I do just little thumbnail sketches of how would I combine these different things. For a painting like this, this reflects my trip to Cape Breton, and these are different environments on Cape Breton that I ran into. Was there for a month drawing, actually on Cape Breton for 2 weeks. There's a bog setting. This represents the East Coast. This is more like the West Coast area. I saw gannets diving. This is a high meadow where I ran into moose, a river going out into a lake there. And of course the flowers, the lupins were in bloom, so they were one of the main features there. And so all these flowers are flowers that I got from my sketches. Saw a flock of redstarts flying through in that area. So I'm trying to combine these different worlds into one painting. Basically, I feel like I'm in a tradition that's a good solid American. I feel very American as a painter. And I'm in a tradition that started really with the Hudson River School of nature painting. But I feel like I'm at a very different place in history than the Hudson River School painters. They were painting when nature was just opening up, was wild, and there were no boundaries, and you could go out in the middle of it and didn't feel like there was any confinement. Today, everything's closing down, and if you do find nature, it's basically in a park if you're finding wild nature, and there are boundaries to it. With my teaching, I feel like I like to bring people to that place so that they're connecting from a deep place within themselves to the natural environment. So my teaching, I try to connect people with their own inner vision, with the way they personally see the environment from their own subjective self to the environment, the objective thing that they see out there, and make that connection. Just try to identify that one big color. Then when you paint it, you can come back and kind of divide up that color in different ways of what you see here. But you want to start with that big color. I don't know if I can put it in spiritual terms, but I basically consider myself a pantheist. In other words, that what I see out there is the blood and flesh of God. That is sort of this big unity that is out distributed in all these different physical manifestations in a lot of different ways. And when I'm out there and truly feeling connected, it kind of gets me more connected with that unity that I see.